Thank you. And general thoughts on the episode, gentlemen. What did you think of Thank You?
Well, we all love Nicholas, so obviously we're all sad. I mean, every one of us were all like, man, I can't wait what that rascally guy is going to say next. It's going to get us all warm and fuzzy inside. About this episode, I think it's a bit of a step down from the previous two, mainly because last week's was like a series best, and the first one was just like, well, that's a lot. But this one, despite one major thing that we'll get to, I think it had a very clunky beginning in terms of Alexandrians doing Alexandrian type stuff that kind of bothered me in terms of, hey, look how many cliches we can pack into 5 minutes. But aside from that, it's very intense, just like the last two episodes were. A lot of stuff happening, a lot of walkers everywhere, people, getting into trouble and whatnot. Like I was very much amped by the rate of things happening in said episode, and there was some quieter moments, one that stuck out really pretty well. So I mean, overall, like it's certainly an intense episode with some major stuff we'll get into, but yeah, just slightly a little bit below the last few weeks.
I love this episode. I think it was really a nice way to continue the action. I mean, how do you continue this kind of action across 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes? They're doing it really well. I think what throws us off is that week break in between and the commercials. If we just kind of watch this on a binge watch, it would be a lot more seamless, if you will. But I like the action in this episode. There's a few things to talk about. A couple of things towards the end that may deserve some discussion. I'm sure we'll get into, but no spoilers right now. And no, let's just get into it, Jordan. I think that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said if we were binge watching this, because I just know me personally, if it was like, oh, I'm just going to watch the first episode of the next season tonight, I know I'd be sitting there for 4 hours just watching them all in a row at this point, because it would just be, oh my gosh, how are they going to resolve this? The cliffhangers this season are on point. I do want to make a note, though, for our listeners. Craig already hinted at this, but we are going to save our debating for did character X die or not until the end, kind of our spoiler section, and in there we might even get, we'll probably have a separate spoiler section where we talk a little bit about comic books and, what happened or did not happen to that same character in the books. But I wanted to say this right at the beginning to get it out there. If you're listening to this and are like, oh man, I really want to know what other people are thinking about whether X character died or not, you don't want to be Googling that, because there are spoilers out there, and you might be able to get a pretty concrete answer as to whether or not it really is real or not just by Googling. So if you are like me and don't want to be spoiled, stay away from Google and Googling the death of that character. Just in general, probably a pretty good idea.
You definitely told listeners to not touch the stove, and I admire you for that.
Well, hey, I'm just saying. In this case in particular, I can see somebody just Googling, oh, what are other people saying about it? What's the evidence for or against? And there are actual spoilers out there that they might want to avoid. Just like there were spoilers before this episode, since I unfortunately knew it was going to happen before the episode even started. So that kind of sucked, but it was still a good episode with that aside. So shall we get into the actual episode discussion, gentlemen?
Sure. We should say that we're not gonna we can discuss maybe mildly what we think before we get to like more heavy debating as to what happened at the end.
Oh, absolutely.
And once we get to the actual portion of the episode in our recap,
the brass knuckles won't come in until after the outro part. That's all. All right. So episode 603 was entitled "Thank You," which is an odd title, but I actually think works pretty well when things are all said and done. It was written by Angela Kang and directed by Michael Slovis, Walking Dead mainstays, and it has a whole bunch of guest actors. No major dots in this week, but we had a bunch of others. I'm not gonna list them all up here, but I thought the guest actors did a pretty good job. There's a bunch of people that we'd either only seen briefly or hadn't seen at all before, and with the exception of maybe one who's dead almost instantly, or no, not him. Actually, I actually thought his delivery was fine. It looked a bit annoying, but that's the way it was written. The floppy hat guy, what was his name? Like Schrodinger or something?
Sturgis,
yeah. I don't like that guy just based on his hat, but aside from that, I thought all the extras did, or not extras, but the guest players did a pretty decent job, and they had some semi-heavy lifting to do for characters that we won't see again.
I agree. I had a hard time keeping up with their names though, because I don't remember being introduced to all these characters really all that well. So I may refer to them as the guy that got bit or the guy that got shot, but just deal with me on that. But I did like their acting. I'll agree.
The woman and the guy who doesn't make it, of the people who last for most of the episode, I believe they were in the truck with Heath when he showed up and Eugene opened the gate in episode 1. I think that was them.
So if it was, they did get a name introduction. I just don't remember. I remember Heath, but I don't remember the other two. I didn't do my research.
Someone's named Tobin, because I heard Tobin a lot.
Oh, we saw Tobin last season. He was the guy who was in charge of the construction site before Abraham took over.
You can say this, but I still don't know who Tobin is by sight.
He's the very generic-looking tall white guy.
Plaid shirt, tried to show Carol about guns, but yeah, that's all I know about Tobin. Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
He seems to be a stand-up guy who's a bit of a coward, but aside from that, we don't know a lot about him.
Was he in this episode?
I think we heard his voice over the radio.
So he wasn't one of the Alexandrians that is trapped in the situation.
No, he wasn't. No.
We don't physically see him.
It's like I watched this episode a couple times and I take notes, but boy, was I like, it's like, who's this Tobin? I keep hearing this name and there's people getting shot every whatever. Okay, move on.
Wasn't Tobin the guy that was also in the room with who was that one from last week? They put the gun to Eugene's head. Says, oh no, it's not us, it was him.
I believe he was in the room. Yes.
Yeah, he's the guy that's the Rick. No, we weren't talking about you. It was this guy over here. Yeah.
Okay.
So Rick, Glenn, Michonne, and the Alexandrians are racing through the woods towards Alexandria, basically picking up their story where it left off in episode 1. I really like the sound mix of this opening scene, particularly because the horn is going the entire scene up until they make a note that it's gone, but it's not annoying. Like it's just there in the background where if you're paying attention, you'll hear it. Otherwise, it's just in the background. But I really like the sound mixing there.
The horns become this like essential like guide of where you are in time that I really enjoy.
Yes, our constant to anchor us.
Yes.
So half of the quarry herd is following Sasha, Abraham, and Daryl still. The other half is broken off and is heading towards the horn and Alexandria. And over the walkie, Rick tells Daryl to stay the course and keep the rest of the herd moving along the road because Daryl wants to break off, let Sasha and Abraham take care of the herd, and he's going to go help Alexandria. But at least in the beginning, it seems like he's going to listen to Rick.
I like that we know Daryl's going to do something later on this season just because he's Daryl and that's what he does. But like right now, he's being held in check and like
Daryl literally drives in circles this episode.
He does. And like in my notes, right, it says, "Where the hell is Daryl?" Like that's what it says.
Yeah, I mean the cold open was actually really well done. If you just take the cold open by itself, and the first shot is of Glenn running, so take it as you will. But then Nick goes into his moments of fuzziness. I don't know what you're going to call that, where his ears start ringing, and I guess it's like a shell shock type
panic attack, anxiety attack, PTSD style filmmaking, whatever you want to call it. But yeah.
Yeah, so he starts that in the cold open, that ear ringing attack mode and or under attack mode. I thought it was really well done. It was another good cold open, and then of course Rick makes a speech to them about they're not all going to make it.
My issue with the cold open is right away, which is another guy. Like you talk about if you watch these binge these episodes, it'd be great just because you get answers like right away, just like how these cliffhangers are going to resolve themselves. My only issue is that if you were to watch these episodes back to back, especially watching like that first episode, watching this episode, like didn't Rick just kill like the same, or didn't like have to deal with just the exact same guy who's making the exact same complaints? And then
well, he did because this new guy in blue shirt, because I didn't even get his name, he even comments he killed Corbin or whatever that guy's name was in episode 1. Like we saw it. Even Michonne's like he was dead already. What are you talking about?
It's like it feels like this guy was like, in case you missed the season premiere, here's me. Like that's what he felt like. And it just seems so. And like it's not enough that he was like complaining about Rick and whatnot. It's that the immediate next scene is that he somehow gets attacked by a walker who apparently came from I don't know the dirt because I have no idea where this one walker would come from. And like it's like just brutally killing this guy, like chewing on his neck, as if like no one questions Rick ever. Here's the problem with you. You're dead now. It's just such a like the writers really want to like show you that Rick is like apparently like gone in this world. Like
well, and that the Alexandrians in general have zero spatial awareness because they're constantly getting blindsided by like not just a walker but groups of walkers that have seemingly just apparated in the vicinity.
We'll just describe the next scene. Wait till we get to like what are also just dumb. Like
yeah, then at the end when that guy is dead and Michonne has to stick him through the head with the sword, Rick just takes his stuff.
Yeah,
like he takes his gun, his knife, whatever else he took out of his pocket.
I believe that was a peanut butter protein bar that he took as well. I'm not even joking.
or Special K bar. Yeah, peanut butter, exactly. But he takes his stuff, and then the whole remainder of that group is just standing there in awe, like in shock, just watching this guy dead, and then they go right to the opening credits. I thought that was just perfect.
That I did like that because my notes I wrote: Dick guy killed, Rick has no empathy. So I mean, as far as furthering Rick's character, I'm all with this. I like Darth Rick that I've been calling him. I like this no empathy Rick who like obviously wants to protect people for the greater good, but feels like no like emotion about any of these people he doesn't know already.
Although you call him Darth Rick, I would say by the end of this episode, this is a very Empire Strikes Back ending, especially for Rick, who, I mean, we'll get to it, but man, is that a dark ending for him.
It's funny how I was distracted by Star Wars last week and I was still on it this week with this episode.
Star Wars is always distracting. There's nothing you can do about that. It's worth noting that whole conversation between Rick, Michonne, and Glenn, where it's like they're not all going to make it, and if it comes to it, you're going to have to leave the stranglers behind. Heath overhears that conversation.
Yeah, he's hiding behind the tree stump. But that all happened in the opening. This is just a great way to start this episode. So, I mean, it had slowdowns throughout it, but what a great way to begin.
So here's the plan, and it gets a little confusing because you have a whole bunch of different like small groups who are all kind of working together, but in different locales, and they tend to keep having to redo their plans. So Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham, they're going to keep leading the main, or the front half of the herd away, just like they were always planning to do from the beginning. Rick is going to run, and I mean run. He spends 90% of the episode jogging and sprinting back to the RV, back to that curve in the road, and he's going to go circle around, try to basically intercept the walkers who are heading toward Alexandria, maybe blow the horn a few times. It's not really clear exactly how, but he's going to try to get their attention and lead them back to Sasha, Abraham, and Daryl, and hopefully lead as many walkers as possible away from Alexandria. Meanwhile, everybody else is just going to try to get to Alexandria. So that's pretty much how you have it going. That's why Rick is running for so long. He's making a wide berth around them. The other group is heading straight to the town. And Daryl will eventually turn around and go to the town, and then turn around and come back because they need something for him to do. So Glenn and Michonne lead the group towards Alexandria. Walkers attack them. The Alexandrians panic because that's what they do. Sturgis, the guy with the dumb hat, he flees wildly and comically into the woods and fires into the air and hits Scott in the leg before he runs away. Nicholas becomes paralyzed with fear, and a walker bites David on the shoulder.
Let's backtrack a bit.
There's a lot of stuff that happens.
The Glenn and Michonne, and who else is that? Glenn and Michonne. They're like, you guys wait here. We will take care of this. What do? They take up their guns like that's us, and they head right to the battle. And sure enough, almost all of them are injured in some way.
Yeah, I think it was Glenn, Michonne, and Heath.
There
Like, they were
we
the
go,
three most experienced ones. Yeah, they jump into it. The other bunch supposed to hold back.
Scott, we should note, he's actually Sneakle Martin Green, Sasha's husband in real life. And he's a new addition to the show who makes it all the way through, so we might see some more of him. I would not be surprised. So David got bit on the shoulder. He's still alive. They decide basically not to kill him. They're going to try to get him home. He's only been married 2 months. Get him back home to his wife so he can say goodbye. And it's not a like gushing wound or something. So as long as they can make good time, he'll make it. That is the plan at least.
Yeah, that's decent. Like, it's not like he's not dying. Like he can walk as opposed to half the other group. So.
And then I believe the woman's name is Annie who's with them. She right around the scene, she either trips and sprains her ankle or trips because her ankle was already sprained. So she's injured as well. So there's a lot of, I don't want to say dead weight, but there's a lot of extra weight being drug around by our leads.
Jordan, I fully support puns in the show. You should say dead weight.
The actor that played Dave, is that what his name was when he got bit on the shoulder?
Dave, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he was really good. Surprisingly good. I didn't catch his name. I didn't go that far to look it up, but really excellent acting. You really felt for this guy. I mean, he just seemed like a normal guy who's mixed up in this, and now he's essentially a dead man, and he knows it. He got bit, and he's done.
Oh yeah, he even says,
really well.
I know what it means. Like when they're talking about his wound, like you don't have to sugarcoat it. I realize what is going on here.
I was happy that it kind of exactly that. They didn't sugarcoat it. Just like, okay, well.
And not only did they not sugarcoat it, but they didn't get into some long argument where Michonne's going to just kill him right there, and everybody else is like, no, you can't do that. They just went past that, which I was
ready for someone to make a move for him. Yes. Honestly, I mean, I was ready for that to happen, but I was really glad it didn't. They finally let somebody that was bit live for a while.
Well, if Darth Rick was there, who knows?
Leave him behind. Gotta go.
So Daryl, meanwhile, tells Abraham and Sasha he's going to go on ahead to not distract the walkers that they're leading, and he's going to circle around to help defend Alexandria. The two of them should be able to handle the herd on their own. They try to get him to stay until they reach the 20-mile marker as planned, but Daryl refuses and he rides off on his bike.
Do they make it the 20-mile marker?
No, that's just they want him to stay until they get to that point.
Okay, I thought you said that they made the 20-mile marker.
No, because then their journey will be over because that is the final destination.
They were at about 5 miles when Daryl splits off.
Right.
Yeah.
So back with the townie group, David tells Michonne about his wife. He hopes he'll get to see her before succumbing to his walker bite, and Annie insists they stop to treat Scott's leg because remember Sturgis shot Scott because Sturgis is the worst. You can tell because of his stupid hat.
In between all this, there was a commercial. I don't know if you all saw it. It was about an airplane and some people on it.
Oh, but are you saying
so
about the Walking Dead Fear the Walking Dead Flight 492 podcast?
It was in my notes, and all I wrote down was one person orders a double vodka, another one orders a ginger ale. Period. That was it. So
that has been another episode of the Walking Dead Fear the Walking Dead Flight 492 podcast.
And an old lady asked the young kid if he's alone. I think that's right as well.
All I can tell is that the Asian woman in front of the kid has a really big crush on him. That's what I've learned.
Or wants to murder him.
I like
or both. Maybe she's just into that.
I like my intense love theory better.
So the group checks cars in an abandoned town to see if they can be used to drive home. This is Glenn and Michonne and all those. Keith recognizes the town as the location Aiden and Nicholas had their disastrous and fatal supply run in. So Nicholas says, okay, that's true, and that means I know the town. I can probably get us home. But it's quite clear that Nicholas is going through a lot, and even if he has that information in his brain, he might not be able to access it effectively or quickly enough to actually do any help.
I like that he's owning up to the things that he did. Like he is like as much as we didn't like him last season. I do like this version of him that we're getting right now, where he's freaked out. Obviously, he's not doing much of a help. But as far as seeing a character go through some kind of recuperation process and understanding the things that they did, their misdeeds that they've done in the past, I like that. However long this arc is going to last, I like that it's happening in this episode.
Yeah, on the way to the town too, there was this nice monologue or dialogue, I should say, between Michonne and Dave about how Dave came to be and how he came to Alexandria. And he goes, I wasn't a person anymore. Do you know about that? And Michonne goes, yeah, I kind of do. Like it called back to last season and even a little bit before that, how Michonne felt unhuman or dehumanized and came back to reality. So it was a good little scene there. I like the dialogue between those two.
So Nicholas leads the way. They find a group of walkers feasting on Sturgis' body. You can tell because of the stupid hat. And Nicholas becomes paralyzed by fear again. But he snaps out of it when Glenn calls his name. We see this a couple times. The group backtracks only to be confronted by more walkers, and so they decide to hide in a pet store, which has some like nasty pet carcasses in cages. It's pretty gross. And Glenn comes up with a plan to go set fire to a nearby building that has a lot of like feed stored in it, and that will hopefully distract the herd and let them get out of there. So Nicholas and Glenn decide to go there because Nicholas knows the way, and they leave the rest of the group inside to hide. Over the walkie, Glenn fills Rick in on his plan, while we see Rick sprinting down the road and fighting off a group of walkers. This is the scene we saw on Talking Dead last week, where Rick cuts his hand, and it doesn't seem like they're maybe they will go this route, but it doesn't seem like they're hinting in any way that he's been infected or that he's going to die because he got zombie guts in his hand. He's just cut and it hurts and it's bleeding, and it sucks. But it doesn't seem like they're stealth killing him there.
No, I think the knife broke and then his hand got sliced on the broken handle of the knife. That's what it seemed like, not the zombie scratch or.
Oh no, but still, there's still zombie guts and gore all over his hand. So I mean, if you wanted to be realistic about it, which remember we're watching a show about zombies, he would totally be dead from that.
The show seems to always play pretty fast and loose with viscera getting onto the characters and whether or not that actually means anything.
Yes.
You've seen that many times happen. Like even like shots on the camera leading to speculation that leads to just nothing at all.
Oh, like in last year's season finale when Rick shoots the zombie that's on top of him, through the head, and the gore just falls all into his eyes and open mouth. Like, you know, if it was gonna happen, it would already happen.
There's like a scene where like I think like Sasha hit Abe with a knife. People are like, oh, is Abe gonna die now because of that slash with a knife? Like that kind of stuff. Just never seems to really amount to anything.
It seems to be the only hard rule is if you are bit with the teeth and get a true bite, that's it. You're getting infected. You're done.
Yeah.
But it used to be. I remember the first season it was about scratches. So checking for scratches. Like that was used to be a problem. Now it's not a problem anymore. It's like,
Or it's just not something they're focusing on. Which I can get. Like from a television perspective, like scratches is hard to quantify, like what counts, what doesn't. And if you can just focus on bites, it makes it simpler.
It's the kind of thing where if we didn't have podcast and internet, this wouldn't really be a thing to discuss at all.
Yes, exactly.
I just don't know why Rick had to injure his hand. I guess it was for the later scene when he's in the RV bandaging himself up. But it just made no sense. It happened so quick. How did his hand get hurt? Most people wouldn't even notice that. I don't think. But they did it for a reason, I suppose.
I mean, in a large part, I think it's all leading towards that ending of just breaking him down piece by piece. I mean, like, you know, other characters, worse things may happen to them in this episode, but for whatever reason, like, Rick's is the one that, aside from an obvious choice who I won't name because we're not there yet, man, it's just like he's getting emotionally and physically battered from all angles, and we don't even see him for like 5 minutes of the episode.
Yes, I agree with all that. I think it's just kind of a character moment to play. It's like, what does Andrew Lincoln need to do? Like, give him something to do. And there's like, okay, there's a small thing he can do as an actor. Kind of add a little emphasis to just him.
And there's the classic metaphor of the wound that won't heal, and the show has even done that before, but it's been much more overt about it. Like, I believe it was Abraham in the Abraham flashback episode who had the wound that would never heal. Yeah. And here, it's almost the same thing, just way more subtle. I mean, not that it would be hard to be more subtle, but this was actually effective if that's what they're trying to do. Like, he's constantly bleeding from that hand and constantly in pain from it. We see him reacting to it multiple times throughout the episode.
And also, you know, right before that knife breaking off into the hand, there was a radio transmission from Glenn, and he said a lot of things. Hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna move people here. But at the end, he said, "Good luck, dumbass."
Yeah.
That was a callback to the first episode.
Either the very end of the first episode or the very beginning of the second.
It was in the tank. It was the very first episode.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the first thing Glenn ever said to Rick, and yeah, that definitely. We'll talk about it later, but that's definitely a notch in either the pro or cons list of our upcoming debate.
And also getting to that, when Glenn went off with Nicholas to go set the fire, he took some things out of his satchel, and one of them was Herschel's watch. I didn't see what he did with it. Did he take it with him and leave the rest of the backpack behind?
It looked like he was taking a screwdriver or something out of his pocket, like he was going to open it up, or it was a pen or something. And I think he was leaving a message inside of the pocket watch.
Oh, okay. So he left the watch behind with somebody else. You think?
I don't know. That was not made clear.
He took it out of the bag either way and opened it up. It was there in the scene for half a second. It was there.
You're acting as if there's a reason to revisit this next week with Glenn again.
Yeah, odd, isn't it? So back in the pet store, Annie and Scott point out that their injuries are slowing everyone down. She has the sprained ankle, he's been shot in the leg, and they urge the group to keep going without them. And Heath looks pointedly at Michonne and refuses to leave anyone behind. And afterwards, Michonne confronts him about his attitude. He tells her he overheard Rick's instructions to leave people behind. And Michonne angrily reminds Heath that he hasn't had to survive like Rick and her and the rest of the group have. He doesn't know what it's like out in the world. He might think he does, and he tries to counter that. You know, he's been out there a lot. But Michonne points out that he's never been covered in so much blood that you don't know if it was yours or Walker's or your friends. And boy, will that come back later twice.
Good monologue. Michonne really acted very, very well here. It was nice to see some lines coming out of her. We don't see too much in the way of monologue from Michonne, so this was very well delivered. But he did make, I actually put some quotes. We don't leave people behind. Heath was saying, not us. Well, Nick and Aiden were the kings of leaving people behind, the Alexandrians. So maybe Heath's group didn't, but a lot of people from Alexandria were left behind. So that's kind of ironic that he said that.
Well, I mean, and I totally get what you're saying. I've seen other people saying the same thing. And it is funny because the Alexandrians pretty much constantly leave other people behind. But Heath is speaking specifically of his group, which are those people, because those are the people he got out of the truck with. They were on the supply run. So theoretically, like, his group is the competent one, you know, the good one who don't actually leave each other behind. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one.
They go on runs and stuff, so they probably get more used to it. Yeah, the Michonne monologue is very good. I like hearing that. I was thinking as I was watching it, remember when we didn't like this character because of like how much investment the writers thought we had in just seeing this badass with swords, and now it's like, now she's like a developed character that we enjoy watching. I like that, and I kind of wish it just stopped there. We didn't really have too many callbacks to the same speech that she gave moments earlier, but this is that show. So
I will say that I found some of her deliveries, because she gives a couple of small monologues as well, to be very monotone. I wish she would fluctuate it a little bit. It seems like she's on a very constant tone in all of them, and I wish she just, you know, varied up a little bit. That said, it's still a very good monologue.
I think it speaks to her standoffish nature.
That's true. Yeah, well, that's absolutely true. So out in the town, Glenn and Nicholas find a walker pinned underneath the car. Nicholas recognizes the walker as a friend that he and Aiden had left behind because, again, that's what they do during one of their supply runs. And he says it should be him to take it out because Glenn's about to, you know, it's his fault that this happened to this guy. He needs to be the one to put it right. And Glenn kind of talks him through it and points out, you know, you're not that guy anymore. You know, you can be a new person. You can be reborn into a good person who's not the worst person ever, aside from Sturgis. And it seems like they're working towards something there.
Nicholas did a really good job acting with his eyes right there when he was hovering over the body before he stabbed it in the head. Just really good. I was just amazed by that. Just good acting on his part.
And it's about this time that the characters also start to hear gunfire coming from Alexandria as well. So everyone starts to pick up the pace and get a little bit more agitated.
I tend to think a lot of great moments of The Walking Dead come from characters reacting to something rather than trying to speak it in some pronounced way. Some monologues aside, I mean, Rick has his moments. We just talked about one great moment by Michonne. I do think there's a lot of good comes from the less people say in the show. I do think there's issues every now and then with dialogue, but I do think Nicholas, again, not a character I was like, man, can't wait to see what he's up to next. But like, I am very happy with what we were given of him in this episode.
Meanwhile, Rick reaches the RV and races off down the road, and I gotta say, I love the visual of the orange balloons flapping away as he's driving like that.
That was funny.
Michonne's group sits quietly inside the pet store, and they watch walkers file by the storefront, drawn by the gunfire because they're hearing it as well. And Michonne sees David writing a farewell note to his wife, Betsy, on a roll of toilet paper. And when he tries to hand it to her, she refuses to take it and tells him, "You're getting home." And she writes that on her arm as well. And the walkers that had been lurking in the back room of the store start to pound on an interior door, which draws the attention of the walkers outside. They kill the walkers inside. And at first, they're like, maybe we can wait for them to go past. And then they see the herd, or the half of the herd that broke away from the main herd, coming towards them. And it's basically time to go, because if they wait any longer, they're absolutely 100% going to die.
It breaks down a little bit for me here too. Why didn't they clear the store in the first place?
Well, to be fair, I mean, that door was behind a poster. Like, it was a very effectively hidden door for no apparent reason.
Okay, so that being said, there was two walkers in there, and somehow the sound of those two walkers transmitted throughout the closed door into the street 50 feet away, and then attracted the other walkers over to that store.
And of course, they made no sound at all before that moment.
Yeah,
right.
Well,
that was dumb.
I mean, I think there's ways to analyze it. I mean, the noise that causes the walkers to come towards the store with Michonne dispatching of said walkers, that was what kind of got their attention. I can imagine, I guess, they're maybe waking up as they realize there are people in the room with them, because Michonne again were already being polite to begin with because they wouldn't want to attract anybody outside. So I think there's not that, you know, this is pivotal if they leave the building 3 minutes later, but
right. I mean, it would have been way more effective for me if like somebody had just made a slight noise inside the building, like nothing, not enough to draw the walkers outside, but just like, you know, knock something over accidentally, just something small, and then the walkers in the back start making noise. Like, that works for me. But here it was just
a fish falling off the shelf or something. That's what would have worked. I agree with you 100%.
Or just somebody leans against a shelf and a can falls off onto the ground or something.
The pet food was called Pup Grub, in case you're wondering.
So keeping score, yes. I thought there was enough A, B, and C to get the like understanding what's going on without having to have a cliche of like some stupid Alexandrian Adrian knocks over a box of crackers and everyone's coming after them all of a sudden.
Well, they make it Michonne or something. Make it somebody we like.
Well, I want to see one of my favorite characters be like, hey, I knocked over something by accident. Yeah, be mad at me now.
So meanwhile, Glenn and Nicholas reach the feed store, only to find out that the very flammable building has already burned down. So Glenn desperately urges Nicholas to suggest another building as the massive herd moves toward them down the street.
That moment made me laugh so much because it's just like the one place they're going is entirely like nothing else around it's burned down, just that store. That just made me laugh. It's like, wow, the writers really want to give these guys a break this week. The one store they wanted to go to is gone.
So Michonne's group is running from the zombies. Andy gets taken down and gets eaten. She does manage to take out a few walkers, though. She gets a heroic death.
Yeah, she did her job.
Yeah.
Girl can shoot.
Okay, but hold on. She had a gun, didn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, why didn't she shoot herself in the head?
I wanted that too.
Okay.
Heat of the moment. Not everybody has it in them to do that, and also in the heat of the moment, if you're ever going to make a mistake, it's going to be when 1,000 walkers are trampling you.
Yeah.
So Michonne's group goes down an alley and they find a gate and they climb over it one by one, but the herd catches up with them and claws at Michonne and David, who are the last to go over. Michonne makes it, David doesn't, and they tear him apart as Heath and everyone else looks on in horror. Heath gets covered in David's blood, calling back to that conversation earlier, and we get a nice close-up of the toilet paper note.
Yeah,
Okay, same question.
Yeah.
Why didn't they take David out?
This seems like someone Michonne stabs somebody in the face, which she started the episode off doing. Like I was like, why is she standing there? After she stood on the fence for like 8 minutes, I swear to God, it took her forever to get like one zombie off her boot so she can climb over a fence. Girl can knock zombies' heads off like that. I think she can move her foot up.
But again, Heath had the gun. He was 3 feet from David on the other side of the fence. He could have just put him out of his misery and shot him in the head.
And again,
Instead of letting him get
sword in
hit
Michonne's hand. She could have poke.
That's right. I mean,
I can buy that Heath doesn't have it in him to do that, but Michonne does. So
Yes.
And so we're now joined by Jim Dietz. How you doing, Jim?
Hello.
There he is.
What are your general thoughts on the episode before we get back to the episode discussion?
In a word, wow.
Good wow or bad wow?
Good wow.
Okay.
I mean, it was the kind of tense, action-packed thrill ride that I've come to expect from Scott Gimple and Greg Nicotero and company. So I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Let's get things straight though right now. Jim Dietz, happy birthday, belated birthday.
Oh yes, happy birthday.
Oh well, thank you guys. Appreciate that.
For sure.
I ate a giant burrito and.
I thought you were going to say turtle.
No, but boy, didn't that look taste tempting on the episode though? There's some good turtle eating there, my friends.
they had bigger bones than I thought they'd have. Okay.
Yeah, this is a weird aside, but going back to last week's episode, I did note when watching that, I was like, I don't think that's what turtle bones look like. But then again, I don't have a clue what turtle bones look like.
Let alone she was very efficient at getting them out of the shell she didn't crack open. Like she
So in another part of town, while David is being ripped apart and not being put out of his misery because everyone else is a jerk, Glenn and Nicholas are going down another alley and they get also cornered by the walkers. But on the other side of their fence are more walkers, so they can't go over. Eventually, they climb on top of a dumpster, and they're being surrounded by just a ton of walkers, including Greg Nicotero, who you may have noticed as one of the hero walkers there.
They zoomed in on his face pretty good. I mean, right in the center of the screen. So yeah, it's hard to miss him in that
Well,
shot.
even before that, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Greg Nicotero, and then like you said, yeah, he gets that big close up. I was like, that is definitely the EPO show
Now, can someone clear up for me why everybody was following Nicholas?
because he knew that town.
Okay, because I thought Heath had said he'd made runs to that town as well, and I don't know. It just seemed like I don't know.
I'm pretty sure
It
he
seemed
said
like
that Nicholas
shaky
had
judgment.
that town, but I'm not sure.
What got me is it seemed like I was curious more of do they know how like maps work? Like you can just leave. Like it seems like they're spending a lot of time of trying. Like I get that they're being like held up, but I mean walkers coming, guys. Like, I don't think it's time to stop. It's time to just keep moving. You're faster than walkers. I don't care what leg you have.
You know what? It's not like a map in an old Silent Hill game or something. There are
Yeah.
many streets and alleys and open roads and like in the town that you could take. I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious which way they would
I
go.
mean, you go one direction, right? Like, that's it.
Right, you go the opposite direction you came. Mhm.
But let's not forget, I think also they had that idea to light the feed store on fire and hopefully stop the zombies from going any further by having them be attracted to the fire. At least I thought that was what the plan was.
Honestly, there was so much like here's the plan. I couldn't like really
Yeah,
decipher
yeah,
exactly every single
well,
plan.
yeah.
They seem to be working out.
As I said on either the Facebook group or the spoiler Facebook group, I can't remember which one, there was a lot of, here's the plan, I disagree with the plan. Well, we're doing the plan anyway. Well, I'm not doing the plan. Oh no, the plan fell apart. Here's the new plan. I disagree with that plan.
Yeah, this
Over and over.
wasn't exactly David Mann writing the screenplay here, so I couldn't really decipher what the plan actually was.
Plans are for closers, Aaron. Plans are for closers.
I mean, the only part that really even like slightly made sense is when they went into the pet store or whatever, just because one of them had been shot in the leg and then the other had broken her ankle or something.
Yeah, there's a part where it's like, all right, they can stop, I guess, but it's like, walkers
Yeah.
coming. Let's just leave. Let's stop staying here. Let's stop trusting a guy that seems to stare off into space every 2 minutes.
GTFO, as the kids say.
Exactly.
But to answer your question, Jim, I think Heath made a statement saying that Nicholas was the last person in that town. Or you were just here. You were the last one here. Where do we go? He did say a line like that. So and that's where his comrade was. We found him dead anyway in the middle of the road there.
So Glenn and Nicholas are stuck on top of that dumpster. They're surrounded by walkers. Nicholas starts to have another one of his PTSD episodes. Glenn pulls him out of it, and we get some POV shots, which I actually thought were very effective.
Oh, yeah.
And then first we see Glenn from Nick's point of view, then we see Nick from Glenn's point of view, and Nick finally gets his bearings just long enough to look at Glenn square in the eye, say thank you, pull out his sidearm, and shoot himself in the face, which sprays Glenn with all the blood. Again, calling back to Michonne's earlier monologue. Nick's body falls on top of Glenn. They fall into the walkers, and then we get some very carefully framed shots, which we will talk about in detail later, where we see Glenn's face, we see lots of gore, we see guts and intestines being pulled out, and we see Glenn covered in blood, and we pull away and don't go back to that for the rest of the episode. So Glenn may be dead, but we will have a lot to talk about with that later.
Now, without talking about that detail in terms of the what happened, who shot Mr. Burns, whatever. The why did Glenn fall down? Because I get what they're trying to tell me that Nicholas fell off Glenn, but watching that scene again and again and again, because I'm sure we all have watched that scene again and again and again, there seems to be no reason Glenn should have fallen off that thing besides being directed to fall off that thing.
Well, I mean, A, directed to fall. B, Nicholas was, some of his weight was going on to Glenn, but also if you think about
Really
one
is.
of those,
Watching the scene, it's like it's
one of those rolly dumpsters like that, which don't weigh a lot, like that was a plastic one, the moment the weight shifts, it's going to start rolling in the opposite direction. And granted, we don't really see this in the way that the shot is shown, but the moment Nick starts falling in one direction and his feet start pushing the other, that dumpster's going to move back about a foot, and Glenn's definitely going to fall. Again, we don't see that, but I can rationalize it in my head.
I can easily rationalize it. That's the question. I get what happened. I just watching, I was like, wait, why did he fall? That was my main question before it actually happened. Unless suddenly my mind had way more questions that were much different than that one.
Also, the music in the scene was great, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Really.
The whole episode has been great.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
that dark synth kind of sound, and if you watch these 3 episodes, the first one, the second one, and this one together, they all have the same type of sound. It's very well woven together. These first 3.
There's a really cool like Left 4 Dead moments when Michonne and Heath and the gang they bust out of the room where the herd is coming. It sounds just like it made it seem like a video game at that point. They like burst out of the room, shooting off zombie heads. Michonne gets like a triple kill. It's all kinds of fun.
And Michonne keeps yelling, pills here, pills here.
Exactly what happened.
The whole time I watched the sequence with Glenn and Nicholas, all I could think about was, okay, this is Glenn. This is one of the major the last 5 or whatever from the originals. How are they going to get him out of this? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because I didn't think that that's all I could think was like, okay, how are they going to get Glenn out of this time? This is a real pickle, almost like the Dukes of Hazzard. But long time railroaded. How are they going to get out of this one?
There's Waylon Jennings when you need him. Come on.
Yeah, you need that narration. But anyway, when Nicholas fell like that, the scene that Aaron was talking about, while I was watching, I was thinking, oh, this is how it's going to happen. Nicholas will shoot himself, all the zombies will go toward him, and Glenn will be able to make his escape, by distracting all the zombies with Nicholas. And that's not the way it played out. But that's what I thought was going to happen,
Yeah.
because like you said, it didn't look like Nicholas would have been able to knock Glenn over into the pile,
It didn't seem natural. I'll agree with what you're saying, Aaron. But if the casual watcher who doesn't rewind and watch it 50 times just saw it, it happened so quick where I don't think anyone's going to really question it the way it happened. But we naturally question it. And you're right, it didn't look exactly seamless or natural the way he fell over into the pit.
It reminded me of, remember Jordan last year we were discussing when Daryl and Carol got in the van and jumped and drove off the side of the bridge. And,
and the
fell,
orientation of the
like,
false switch is mid-shot, yes.
It's like this gravity does not work this way, basically, was the logic. And that's kind of what it reminded me of here. That said, I was also ready to accept Glenn running over the tops of waterheads like Living Like Die style Roger Moore, James Bond, and like get over that way. So, I'm all game for crazy things.
As long as Super Mario sound effects play when he does that, I'm cool with that as well.
For sure, exactly.
Meanwhile, Grim and exhausted Michonne and Heath help Scott limp through the woods, and as they wade through a creek, Heath looks down at his reflection and sees him covered in his friend's blood. Again, calling back to that monologue from Michonne earlier in the water.
That's where
I
they
thought the zombies were going to come out of the water. I felt like someone was going to come and grab him.
Yeah, because it looks like his foot gets stuck for a second, and like he's about to say, "Oh no, there's something under here," but luckily they didn't go that trope.
Weren't they helping Abraham, not Scott?
No, Abraham's in the car with Sasha.
No, I mean, Father Gabriel.
Oh, thankfully he was not in this episode. He's still back at Alexandria being not killed.
Because Rick told him no right away in the first episode. He's like, no.
Right, I remember now. Okay, I'm sorry.
When Heath looked in the water, I was waiting for Michonne to turn to Heath, and then it'd be a shot of Michonne looking at the camera saying, "Get it!" And that's what I was waiting for.
That would have been perfect.
Yeah, I thought sure there was going to be like a Friday the 13th moment where something, a zombie was going to hop out of the water at Heath. But
I kind of wish it did just for the one to be like, yeah, we don't care that you're still mourning over Glenn. We want to just continually shock you, and here's something else now.
Meanwhile, Rick stops the RV at the edge of the woods where he's going to intercept the herd when they get there, and he tries to reach Glenn by walkie-talkie, but he receives no response. Then he radios Daryl to tell him the breakaway herd will soon be back on track, but he gets no response. Which, again, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I love this breaking down of Rick. Like, he just keeps radioing people and getting no response, and you can just see him start to panic. And as he waits, two men sneak into the RV and fire at him. Hey, it's those wolves that Morgan let escape from Alexandria with a gun.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, that came back to hurt somebody. Rick dives, he returns fire, he kills them, and then as he's looking around, first he finds a thing of baby food in the one guy's pocket to let us know this is indeed the people from Alexandria, and to tell Rick that something really bad happened at Alexandria. And then he sees in the side view mirror of the RV more wolves sneaking up outside the RV, and he opens fire on them with a gun through the walls, killing all of them without even being able to see them directly. It's pretty awesome.
I think the real implication is that something happened to Judith, even more than something that happened to Alexandria. You know what I mean?
Oh, true, yes.
It was specifically baby food. It wasn't something else.
It's only because of speculation that something could have happened, but yeah, obviously it also indicates that these are people from Alexandria that got stuff.
Yeah, when that wolf came in and shot the RV, there was sparks that flew out from underneath the dashboard. So obviously they put some kind of squib under there and they made it explode. So maybe that's why in a second the RV won't start. Because I had to rewatch that. I'm like, why won't the stupid
That's
RV
exactly
start?
why. Of course it is. He put bullets into the RV. There was only one reason why.
Right. But I was like, I'm playing that cliche again. Okay, the stupid RV won't start again. Dale's RV blew up again. It's like these RVs keep stopping. They keep blowing up. But I guess the wolf shot it up, and that made me feel a little bit better about the thing that started.
And I believe the wolf also shoots Rick's radio, because there's some question about that on the Facebook group. I believe the bullets hit both things, and so that's why neither one wants to work after that.
Nothing hit Rick though, because his spider senses were tingling. Like he jumped right out of the way.
Yeah,
like the dude had the drop on him. There's no reason Rick should be able to sense this unless he has mutant abilities. He got out of there.
So Daryl hears gunfire over the walkie and he calls Rick's name, but he gets no response. And so he turns around, races down the road, and reluctantly rejoins Abraham and Sasha as the herd trails behind them. Michonne, Heath, and Scott arrive at Alexandria to find outlying buildings burned and to walk past the Arno food trucks. And Michonne unsheaths her katana. And then for our final shot of the episode, which I really like, first Rick tries to start the RV, but it won't work. He keeps trying and trying. He starts panicking more and more, but he's just not getting any response from it. And then the camera pulls back, and we get this awesome overhead shot of the herd, the half of the herd that broke away, starting to come through the woods and just surround the RV. And we cut to black. But I love that final shot, and it's just like, this is not a good day for Rick. Rick Grimes is having a bad Monday.
It's a nice nod to that classic horror trope, though, of the car not starting. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I just hope Rick has a screwdriver.
You mentioned an overhead shot. They used several in this episode, which I thought was great because it finally gave us some sense of scale. Usually we're on these roads that are tree lined and you're in the middle of Georgia. I should say Virginia now, although it's still Georgia. But either way, they zoomed out. They showed Daryl with a bike meeting up with a car and a herd of zombies. What a great shot that was. It was CG, but damn, it didn't feel like it. And then another shot, like you said, the overhead where Rick's RV got overrun. And I think there's a last overhead shot as well. There was one final one. So there was multiple ones, and I thought that was just perfect.
It certainly works in the favor of a show that has like hundreds of zombies in one location as opposed to just a few or something here or there. This is, they really want to emphasize the fact that there's this massive herd that we're dealing with currently in the season. So let's make sure to show that there's a massive herd of zombies and that this is stuff that they're dealing with now.
Plus, it was super helpful to see where they were in relation to one another.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't really made clear a lot of the time.
Well, I mean, we don't really know where Daryl went this whole episode. It seemed like he drove one big circle, I guess, if
He
you want
did.
to call it that. Yeah.
Or at least a line back and forth.
Back and forth, yeah.
So let's take a moment before we head into our busters to talk about our sponsor. Of course, our sponsor this week and every week on the Walking Dead TV podcast is Discount Comic Book Service and their sister site, InStock Trades, at DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. We talk about them every week, and you probably know the deal by now, but if you've missed it or if you just need a refresher, here's the deal. Comics and comic book related merchandise is really expensive, like to an annoying degree expensive. We're talking $3, $4, $5, $6 sometimes for an individual book, $10, $15, $20 for a trade, expensive t-shirts, expensive hats, expensive hoodies. Don't spend that much money on that. That's stupid. Go to InStockTrades.com, go to DCBService.com, and save big money on your comic books, your trades, and your comic book related merchandise. We're talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and sometimes even more percent off on your comic book merchandise and comic book related merchandise. They're an awesome sponsor. They've been really great to us. They have great customer service, and check them out. You're going to like them. So DCBService.com, InStockTrades.com. Get your comics and comic book related merchandise on the cheap. Compendium 3 is coming out really soon, or just came out last week. I can't remember the exact date, but if you want to check out 48 issues of The Walking Dead all in one go, you're going to get it at the best discount you can find at DCBService.com. So check that out.
You'd be a real Father Gabriel not to do this.
What a Sturgis. Don't be a Sturgis. Use DCBService.com.
Nobody wants to be Sturgis.
So, gentlemen, let's talk about our busters, of course. 1 buster is terrible, 5 busters is awesome, and the things in between are on a relative scale that you would expect from 1 to 5. So, Aaron, on a scale of 1 to 5 busters, what do you give? Thank you.
Well, I mean, despite having a significant moment that we will be debating for days here, I'm still going to give it a solid 4 busters. I think it's a really strong episode. Again, I just think it's a couple notches under the previous couple weeks, but there's a lot of good work here in terms of keeping up the intensity, showing us the massive zombie horde that's still causing a lot of danger and whatnot for our heroes. So it's a good episode, really strong, action heavy. Exciting to watch the 4 busters.
I like 4.5 busters for this one. I'm into the action heavy things, and that's what gets me going. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this episode. There was some good moments as well. Like I said before, some good dialogue and monologue from Michonne we haven't seen from her. Some other characters as well, maybe the secondary characters or in this case tertiary characters, but the Alexandrians. But either way, I enjoyed this episode a lot. The direction was really solid. Again, the music was very well integrated into the episode. And again, as I said, these 3 episodes are very much almost one episode. The way it feels. I wish I could just binge watch it. Well, I can now. It's on my DVR. I guess I could do that. But very, very interesting. And we'll talk about the debate that is to come as far as Glenn's fate is concerned in just a moment. And I'll reserve my comments until the spoiler section. 4.5 busters.
I will give it a 4.5 busters if a certain thing that we're going to talk about in the debate actually occurred, and if not, I will take away 2 busters.
Two entire busters. Okay.
Yes, because I would think that was such a cheat from what they showed us. So, but again, we'll get into that debate later. But yeah, I really enjoyed the episode, full of action, a lot of tension, good character moments. 4.5 busters, unless well, like I said, we'll get to that when we get to the debating area.
I'm also going to give the episode 4.5 busters, although there's no asterisk for me. It's 4.5, regardless of how that plays out. The beginning was a little slow. Some of the plans and new plans and disregarding the plans was a little bit confusing, although in retrospect, I do think it all works out. I think they could have done a better job of just laying it out there in the beginning. A couple of line deliveries here and there I found a little bit monotone and that kind of thing, and like we already talked about at the beginning, the reoccurring, here's a new person who disagrees with Rick, oh, they're dead. I think we've had enough of that for the season. Maybe we can do different things now.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. It was like, as soon as that guy spoke out about Rick, like 2 minutes later.
I mean, it was funny, don't get me wrong, but we've seen it now. Let's do some new things. But aside from that, I thought it was a really solid episode. I thought all the action there, particularly the end stuff with Glenn and that ending scene with Rick, was really, really solid. So I'm going to give it a 4.5. But who cares what else Bunch of Sturgises think? Jim, what do our listeners over at the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group think of this week's episode?
Every week we ask our members of our Facebook group what they thought of each episode of The Walking Dead. And that Facebook group, by the way, is called The Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group. We're over 600 strong. And you should really come join us. We have a lot of good news there. You can read, there are links there to Aaron's reviews of the episodes that he does. We have a lot of new good news links, fun memes, and there's a lot of good discussion without a lot of trolling or whatnot. It's a good group, so definitely check that out, The Walking Dead TV Podcast. But every week we ask what you thought and with your busters, and this week is no exception. Hezron Knack, 5. Wow, the 3 black guys made it out of 5. Best episode so far. Good direction, action, suspense, great cliffhanger ending. Pamela Burton, I can't believe what I just watched. I don't even know what rating to give. Did it really happen like that? Did it really kill Glenn? Just stunned and amazed, I guess. Brent Jones, solid 4. What the F did I just watch out of 5? I gotta say, I love the dumbass line. Did that bring Glenn's character around full circle? Shaylin Benson Vega, 5 Buster Blues out of 5. That was actually much milder death than in the comic. There's no way they could have done like the book on TV. I like this better. Seth Tillman, 4.5. Glenn still alive. Dumbasses out of 5. With the way they fell off the dumpster in the overhead shot, showing such a small feeding spot, I can't say for sure he's dead. Cheryl Morris Goodman, I want to give it 5 out of 5 because it was narratively brilliant and nuanced. I'm just angry. Everard said to Marina, I'm not sure what rating to give. It really did have me on the edge of my seat. I got slightly spoiled by it, but I don't care that much about spoilers. I wasn't sure he was going to get it, but it could have been anyone from a production value standpoint. This is right up there, 5 out of 5. Susan Monk, 4 nerd rage riots over fake death out of 5. Let's see, Mike Jones, 4 spouse kebabs out of 5. And, not a good week to be a husband on the show. While I was thrilled they let the black characters live, I don't appreciate continued violence against RVs. It's the RVs that suffer. It really is. Trisha Terrell Collins, 4.25 busters. I really have nothing clever to write after watching. I kept thinking Dale could have gotten that RV going. Carl Hooker, just rewatched, and the way Nicholas fell on top of Glenn, there's no way. Leave some wiggle room at least. If that's the case, I give it 4.75 dumpster dives out of 5. Max Silver, 4.5. He's better check himself out of 5. I'm in the Glenn's not dead camp. Jason Voss, 4.75, and I'm devastated. David be the third. It's a 5. Alan Rutledge, 4 out of 5 dumpster dives. Having Glenn survive would be a cheap way out. Mike Litzman, 4.5 floppy hats. It bothered me that nobody especially Michonne put David out of his misery while watching him being eaten. Yeah, that did bother me as well. David J. Garrick, 4 thank yous. A bit jumbled direction the first third, but the pacing was good to the end. My brother Daryl Taylor from the DC TV podcast and Nothing's On. This season started out strong and keeps getting stronger. 4 out of 5 broken hands. Robert Nigro, 5 mummified pet store puppies. There's so much to discuss in this episode. Absolutely, that's why we have a podcast. Paul McInerney, 4 out of 5 busters with an Alexandrian demerit. They really are completely useless. Wow. Rick's face at the end was as hopeless as the episode. Rob Cook, 4 Winnebago, 4 failed Winnebago jackings out of 5. Richard Chopper Cherry Charrington, 5 your pizza's gonna be really late out of 5.
Oh man.
Oh, too soon, Richard, too soon. Poor Maggie's lost everyone she cares for. It is true. Chris Pierce, I give it 4 out of 5. The whole car not starting is a real tired cliche I could do without. Yeah, but to be honest, he shot it up with his assault rifle, so.
Yeah, we explained that. We saw some sparks, so something happened there. Don't
And
blame
finally,
Winnebago.
Maybe the guy in the RV just fell in love.
It's the ghost of Dale is going to come help him out. And
Or smooth them all over and hide all the guns in a swamp.
Listen, Glenn knows how to fix RVs too, you know. Just saying.
This is like the guys
About that.
in Return of the Jedi, you know. And then finally, Luke Smith. This season's knocking out of the park. Another amazing episode, and he's running a meme of Ron Burgundy in a phone booth saying, "I'm in a glass case of emotion." So please join us, and it's the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group. And like I said, we have a lot of fun stuff going on over there. Please, if you listen to the podcast, you should definitely join the group as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to close it out now. But again, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about next week's episode. Just, the brief bit we have about it from AMC. We're going to talk about whether Glenn is really dead and why we think that, and then a little bit of book stuff also about Glenn to tie that all up. So if you don't want to hear any of that, cut out now. We won't be offended. We understand. But here's the outro for you. Of course, you can get in contact with us at WDTV@HHWLOD.com or follow us on Twitter at HHWLOD_network. I'm at Jordan FRM Jersey. Aaron is at Aaron's PS4. Jim is at Yoda Jones, and Craig is at Auto Chat Show. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have this down one of these days.
You got it.
Or at least I'll have the doubt that I don't have it down out of my head. And of course, you can check out the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group as well. A lot of fun there. A lot of discussion going on, particularly right now. So check that out. So until there's no more room in hell and the dead walk the earth, remember, thank you. Have a good weekend, buddy. And next week on The Walking Dead, of course, if you don't want to know anything at all, cut out now. And of course, this is one, believe me, even if you're spoiler phobic, I wouldn't worry about this one particularly, if you want to get to the Glenn, is he dead or not discussion. So don't worry too much. Next week's episode is called Here's Not Here. That's HERESNOTHERE. Here's Not Here. And it's going to be 90 minutes, by the way. So set your DVRs accordingly, or your Betamax recorders, if that's what you're still using, and stuff like that automatically. But it's going to be 90 minutes, and it's going to be, from what we can tell, completely, or at least the vast majority of it will be a flashback to what happened with Morgan, either between season 1 and now, or between Clear and now, or some combination of that. So it's going to be a flashback Morgan episode to kind of break things up a little bit. So I, even as a spoiler phobe, don't consider that particularly spoilery. But the brief synopsis we have from AMC is a new face and settings are introduced. With all that's going on in the apocalypse, can people be trusted?
I feel like I said last season that I really don't need an episode focused on Morgan in his backstory, and it's almost as if like Scott Gable's throwing this in my face. He's saying, well, you know what, you're gonna get it anyway. Which is like, all right, fine, 90 minutes of Morgan. I can't feel bad about that. Still,
This will be the first non-premiere or finale that'll be 90 minutes long, or I guess maybe mid-season premiere finale. I can't
I don't think
remember.
any of those were 90 minutes.
No, they weren't.
Episode 3 will be or episode 4 will be a 90-minute episode. Weird, random, but okay, cool.
So Aaron, you can handle this. You can handle 90 minutes potentially of Morgan and his Zen Cheese Master versus 2 episodes of The Governor last year, right, which I think you despised. So,
Oh yeah, no, I can't. We can't stand that.
What if they give Morgan an atrocious fake beard
I dig it.
and an eye patch?
But
come on.
they can give him all the sunglasses and funny wigs and hats, and they want to. The key is that somehow Lenny James made Morgan more of an indelible character that I'm happy to deal with in the span of what probably amounts to like 50 minutes than an entire season featuring the governor, who I couldn't get around. So I mean, good job, David Morrissey, for getting a good acting gig and doing your best. But like that's not a character I really enjoyed seeing on the show. Whereas I see this Morgan character who's done nothing but present me with awesomeness, and I'm happy to deal with it.
And I just want to mention our listeners are going to be premiering the first trailer from the upcoming Preacher series during that episode of Walking Dead next week as well, which is also based on graphic novel and is also very cool and worth your time.
For sure.
Love that series.
All right, gentlemen, let's get our blackjacks and brass knuckles out and debate: is Glenn really dead? Now, I shouldn't do anything. I'm gonna go first and say I'm very much on the fence, but I think he's gonna make it. I think there's a lot of evidence pointing in both directions, a lot of even subtle things pointing in both directions, but I think that he's going to make it in the long run.
I have Scott Gimble's statement here that he wrote to The Talking Dead.
Yeah, why don't you read that for us? So
I'll read it right now. In and of itself, it's unusual.
Yeah.
Usually when a character dies, they're on the couch of The Talking Dead because that's their send-off. That's their way to say goodbye to the fans, and it's been a tradition.
And
So
they're in the
Scott
in
Gimble's
memoriam
statement.
for that.
So,
He was not.
I'm sorry, who was it?
Glenn was not in the in memoriam.
No, he was not either. That's a very good point. And then they had to kind of backtrack on that. But let me read Scott Gimble's statement. He goes, "Dear fans of The Walking Dead, this is a hard story to tell. And when we were planning to tell, we knew our fans of The Talking Dead would be talking to you about it, and knowing you'd all be talking and feeling and commiserating. I knew we should say something about it, lest our silence say something we didn't mean to say or not say. So I'll say this: in some way, we will see Glenn, some version of Glenn, or parts of Glenn, again, either in flashback or in the current story to help complete the story." And that was his written statement, which was read by Chris Hardwick on The Talking Dead.
So what we've learned from that is that Scott Gimple should run for office because that said nothing.
Well, he always says nothing when he's on the couch anyway.
I mean, it's his job, but that was double speak.
And it's fine.
yes,
So
exactly.
that being said, I'll give my opinion. I'm just going to go around the room here. I think that Glenn is not dead. And I haven't Googled spoilers since you said it at the beginning of the episode, Jordan. I haven't been on Google looking for it. I don't think he's dead. The way they shot it, the way they framed it, the way the story is, he's just, I think he is coming back. Let's just put it that way. And being absent from The Talking Dead was the biggest spoiler to me. And then that made me go back and rewatch the scene. And that's kind of bad. I mean, if I didn't watch The Talking Dead, then I guess maybe I would have thought he was dead.
Well,
right?
I should be clear. My belief that he's not dead has absolutely nothing to do with the spoilers that are out there and has nothing to do with what was on Talking Dead, although Talking Dead certainly seems to bolster my thoughts. I'm basing my is he dead or not only on what was in that episode. And what was in that episode of The Walking Dead makes me think that he is not dead.
Yeah,
That's
like
what
it was the other person, Nicholas, getting eaten. So wrapping up, I think this is going to be the Who Shot JR of the century. I mean, they're going to stretch this out as long as they can. I think they're maybe not going to wrap it up until the end of the season or beyond. They're going to stretch this thing out.
I doubt that.
They
I
better
hope
give
not
us an
too.
answer within. I'll give them next week's flashback episode, and I'll give them one more episode. But they better wrap this up one way or the other before one more episode from there.
Look at all the buzz this is getting. I mean, they're going to milk this thing, I think, to the very end. You're going to see maybe Maggie in some mourning period, and they're going to stretch this thing out. That's all I suspect is going to happen. Hopefully by the mid-season finale it'll be wrapped up. I agree, but somehow I doubt it.
So watching this the first time, I was like, all right, well, he's dead. That sucked. Like that was kind of my thought. But then watching it the second time while I was writing my review, and then just seeing someone isolated the clip, so I was watching that clip again and again. And I was like, all right, well, now every single clip kind of furthered my doubt on the fact this happened. And then just kind of thinking about the logic of him dying now, the way it happened, the kind of trickiness to the shooting. It's just like there's no reason there would be ambiguity to the fate of a major character. If they wanted to kill off Glenn, I think they just straight up kill off Glenn. Obviously, there's the kind of like how would he survive type thing. I do think there's a possibility of like Nicholas's body being so just being devoured and like the leftovers kind of being on top of Glenn, so you couldn't quite get to it. I think that's a little bit unbelievable, but I could see the ship trying to get that angle. And of course, there's also like some kind of last second save, which I think would be a cheap way out if somebody were to come over and be like draw their attention or something and get them off of. I don't even know why that would happen. Like, there's a lot of ways out of this. But that's just the kind of the overall logic of him being dead in this way. It just seems like there's too much against it to really be like, yes, this is the final time that we're going to see Glenn alive.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see. Well, first off, it's totally in that shot Nicholas being bit and not him. There are guts being pulled out of the area of Glenn's chest. That's not where the intestines are. That's where the lungs are. The Walking Dead plays fast and loose with things, but they know enough about that to not make that mistake. It's clearly framed to not show you his face and the wound in the same clear shot. You're seeing over the wound at his face, and you're not seeing a clear shot of him being ripped apart. That kind of stuff. I think there's plenty of ways they can have him get out of that. All you have to do is have the walkers be eating Nicholas, have someone else show up and make a noise or something happen to distract the walkers, and he rolls under the dumpster, which they clearly show enough space under the dumpster there for him to fit. There are a number of ways to see this. Now, I could also see him totally being bitten in that scene, and this being the beginning of the end for him, where we might get like an episode or two more with him, but with him knowing he is going to die. And I think that Scott Gimple's quote is hinting at something which a lot of people have already been speculating at. We haven't really talked about it on the show, but there's been a number of hints that Maggie is pregnant so far, and I think, him living on in some way, aside from him just maybe making it back to say goodbye, will be their kid, is what I'm thinking. That's not based on spoilers, that's not based on the comic, that is just based on the show and what we've seen so far.
If you guys read my thoughts on the first episode, because I wasn't on the premiere episode, but I did kind of I feel like Glenn is kind of on the side of leaving the show as in terms of kind of him being vulnerable based off his actions versus what Rick's doing, which is why I still want to see him live a little longer, because I do think he has he's kind of in the opposite place. He's a Rick from, I think we mentioned this on the show before, he's a Rick from a couple seasons ago, where he's trying to do everything he can to be compassionate in the midst of doing things for the greater good. I do think there's more room to kind of see that thematically play out rather than just end it right away in this third episode of the season.
Yeah, they're trying to drive that point home very hard, that there's Rick's way and then there's Glenn's way. Glenn's way is compassion, giving Nicholas a chance to redeem himself, redemption, and Rick is totally about just, you're in my way, you're my enemy, you're dead, no mercy, no compassion, and that's it. So they're being very blatant about that. Getting back to the death itself for a second, I don't think it was a very noble death if it was a death. And usually they give these characters a noble way out. I didn't feel it was noble. That's a good way of describing it, or heroic, or even
I get what
character
you're
to stature.
No, it's a goofy death. It's like, I hate you guys, I fell in the ball.
Although if it was his trusting nature and his forgiving nature and his willingness to see the best in people, that is what kept Nicholas alive, and if that's what gets him killed in the end, I do think in some poetic way it is fitting. Not the most heroic, but damning even, but it is in some way fitting.
I think if Glenn sacrificed himself for Nicholas, or sacrificed himself for the group,
that would certainly be better. Don't get
that
me
would be
wrong.
better in his compassion angle, or his where he is in his mindset right now. But that wasn't it. Yeah, they just kind of, like Aaron said, fell over into a pit of walkers. It didn't really make sense. And of course, the mysterious Talking Dead, we'll leave that alone at this point. But I think that I think Glenn's going to survive for a bit longer. I don't know, but the being bit thing is interesting though. I never really considered that one.
Because, like we said, we keep saying any way for him to get out of that, would feel like a cheat unless he doesn't make it out unscathed. Because if he makes it out but he was bit in the process, or bitten technically, I think that will fly a lot better. Because otherwise, the moment they show he's still alive, you're going to have a lot of people going, that's BS. Like, there's no way he got out of that. Even if someone did make a big noise and distract the zombies, or, land a helicopter in the center of them and chop all their heads off simultaneously or something, no matter what, you've got to have something there. I do think it's so important. We've all pretty much said we agree he's not dead. But we should look at the evidence that he is dead. There's, like we talked about earlier, there's the dumbass comment bringing his character full circle to where we first saw him. There's the whole thing with him pulling out the watch and doing something with it that's a very last moment's action. There's the fact that Scott Gimple was one of the walkers in the crowd. You know, he was the walker who bit Amy.
Nicotero.
I'm sorry, did I say? Who did I say?
Scott Gimple.
Scott Gimple, yes, sorry, Nicotero. That'd be fun to see.
Yes, actually, it would be.
It Walker, but Nicotero was the zombie who bit Amy. He tends to show up not just as a random walker when he has showed up. I mean, I think it's been once or twice, but he is definitely there. There's a big shot of him, and it feels like he would want to be part of that scene if this was really the one where, if Glenn was not at least killed, bitten. That's just how I feel about it. It seems like an odd place to just put him if it was just a big group of walkers.
At the same time, if this show did decide to just kill Glenn off that way, as much as I'd be like, there's a lot of doors left open on why do that now, you can do it later. But I would have this kind of begrudging respect for the show to be able to be just that dark and cynical about everything. Like this,
Oh, for
like, this
sure.
is like The Walking Dead is a very nihilistic show. I deal with that every week when I watch Rick be right in his terrible ways as random innocents get killed for questioning him. But it wouldn't be beyond me to believe that this show's incapable of doing something like that. It wouldn't be maybe the preferred method of doing that, but there's something there's a ballsiness that I could admire for going that route.
Okay, killing him off is one thing, but doing it the right way, like I said, in a noble way. At least having him go in the way that his character
I
deserves.
completely get that in terms of you want to see more, but that's again I prefer that as well. But again, there's this just begrudging respect I have for the show to be like, no, screw your emotions. Like we're gonna do this just the roughest way possible to make you really feel it. Like I think that would be a hell of a way for the show to really kick off. Like we don't take any prisoners.
And you got the whole Maggie component too. She can go out looking for him now if he doesn't show back up. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen now.
Oh yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much our thoughts based on the show for whether or not Glenn is dead or alive or why, or the evidence pro and con. Now we're going to move into a separate spoiler section where we're going to talk about the comic and Glenn in the comic and things that happen to him in the comic that may or may not happen in the show. So this is your last warning for comic book spoilers up to and including issue 100. If you don't want to hear them, and trust me, if you haven't read the book, you don't want to hear them, cut out now. Okay. So if Glenn dies here, is this a better or worse death than Negan in issue 100? Because people hated that in issue 100.
Well, so I mean, I've said this many times on the podcast and just in general with Walking Dead. Glenn's my guy. Like, there's various characters I think are awesome to watch or whatnot, but like Glenn's always been like my boy. Like he's consistent, he's good, he does the right thing, he never makes any dick moves, he doesn't make any like questionable moves. He's just all around like he's like aside from Rick just because he's wakes up in this world. Glenn's basically your in character. He's almost the audience except he has some experience of walking away from walker attacks. So, looking at the depths of these two versions where this one in the show to be an actual death, I guess I hate Negan. Like I know there's a lot of people out there that have this kind of begrudging fun with Negan because of his penchant for swearing and the various things that he does as a character. I despise him. I don't find it fun to watch him. I really get annoyed by his presence in the comics. I'm only I'm far enough to know things that happen to Negan, but like watching him destroy Glenn, I guess that's more impactful on me, just because it's like, who is this person I have to deal with? And he just took away my favorite character ever in the series. So on the whole, yes, I think that one hurt. That one makes me feel a lot more than this one were to, I guess.
Because I mean, Craig, if you want to call this death meaningless, like how do you compare it to that death, which was pretty much literally meaningless in terms of Glenn's agency?
Now, I'm deliberately behind in the comics, just so you know. I don't want any, I shouldn't say spoilers, but although we're going to talk about it right now, it's fine. I know about how Glenn died in the comics, but I haven't gotten to that point yet myself.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't even think about that to warn you.
Yeah,
before.
but that's again, as long as he goes in a way that's befitting of his character, I'll just say it that way. The years he's put in, what he's done with the show, he should go in a noble, brave, heroic send-off. So I'll just leave it at that.
I would say if he did die in this episode, that is more fitting for his character than the way he died in the book. At least for me, because it was his good actions coming back to bite him. Instead of just one person in this group is going to die, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, literally, oh, it's you, Glenn. For me, this works better, honestly. But then that leaves the question of who do they have Negan kill to make the impactful death of our remaining characters if it's not Glenn?
Yeah.
I actually think you're correct. That's exactly what I'm thinking because, I don't think they had Morgan stay around nearly as long as he did in the book, and I think that would be a fitting way for them to bring him back. We get his full story next week, and then, he gets, are we thinking he's going to show up in the mid-season finale or the finale? Or...
I think
they've already cast him, I think, right? I don't know if he's in this season or beginning next season, but he's already been cast.
I would say probably the end of
next
next season, or the end of this season, not the mid-season finale. I would say the end of the
And
season.
I think that sounds perfectly reasonable. I also think, speaking of comic book spoilers, I think the person who will probably rescue or at least get the zombies away from Glenn is Jesus. I think that'll be our introduction to him.
Yeah.
And an immediate way for us to
cast
like
too?
him.
Has
Oh,
he?
yes.
Okay.
There are set photos of him. He will definitely be around this season. So, I mean, I think that'll be an immediate way to ingratiate with us with that character is have him save Glenn.
I think just to go back to the impactful death thing, I think it's also I've been reading this comic since 2003, so I mean I really like Glenn. So I know we've had years with Steven Yeun as a character. I think he does a great job as Glenn. I think he's probably the best cast character in the show. Actually, I can really look at it versus the comic.
Certainly up there. What about Father Gabriel? You don't think Father Gabriel?
I can barely remember. So no.
He's also awful.
Yeah, I remember being off, I barely remember like the presence of him, so it doesn't matter that much. But I mean, so having over a decade worth of Glenn, it's like, oh well, that sucked. that hurts a lot. I just lost this person. So.
I know Kirkman's made some comments, things he regretted about the comics. I'm not that far ahead, but deliberately not. But I know where Rick lost his hand, and I guess the governor did that.
The Shane thing he's regretted.
Well, killing Shane that
Yes,
early,
yeah.
because he died at the end of the first trade. He was
Yeah, issue 6. Or issue 5 or 6. One of the two.
Right, it's the last page of the trade. I like the trade paperbacks because they're nice to hold, and I like them better. So yeah, it's the last page of that one, the first trade. He goes, and he also regrets cutting Rick's hand off because it really debilitated his main character. And I don't know if he said this or not. Maybe he does regret the way that Glenn goes.
I don't think he
You
said
know,
one
I
way or
would
the
doubt
other. He may have, but I don't
I think
think
100 episodes or 100 issues that he knew what he was doing at that point. If he's
Okay.
gonna kill a character, a main character, I think he probably thought about it a little bit more than what, this seems like a good idea. I think he kind of had it in mind. The way he was
Yeah, I mean, because all the reasons he had for Shane and the Shane thing was all story reasons. The story's way more interesting if you keep Shane around for a while. And the Rick thing, it's all story reasons. If he doesn't have a hand, a lot of the things you can do with the story are cut off. You are semi-artificially limited in the stories you can tell because you have to have the character do things that the character can do with one hand.
I do think though it also makes you have to kind of scrap together ideas based off that. It makes you maybe stronger in coming up with something interesting.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I agree. It's like with studio interference and stuff. Like in my mind, it's almost always at least has the potential to be good because the more limited you are, the more creative you have to be. But from his perspective, I get what he's saying.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't think there's anything limiting about killing off Glenn. Yes, obviously you can tell more stories with Glenn, but that is a calculated move. Like you said, Aaron, 100 issues in, he knew what he was doing.
Comic-wise, yes. Show-wise, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, well, that remains to be seen.
So would you guys be okay if Glenn's missing for a while, but somehow he returns right in time for Negan to kill him?
No.
That would seem very convenient. I'm sorry, I had to step away for a moment.
Jim, we are in spoiler territory. We're in comic book spoiler territory now. So we've even skipped the debate. All of us agreed Glenn's probably still alive. We're now talking comic book spoilers, whether or not this death is better or worse than the Negan death, etc. So forth.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like if Glenn lives after this, that would be a huge cheat. on the audience. I just feel like I would feel personally cheated because, I mean, I think they should let him be dead and live with their decision. And I thought it was a pretty bold one. I was kind of more shocked that the production decided to do that than I was in the actual character's death, almost. But you know what? I hope he's not dead. I mean, and I kind of figured he probably won't be. But I wish they would leave him dead. I mean, I wish you showed us his intestines being eaten. So
Well, Jim, you've watched the episode. I mean, you can agree that it's not like the most like tellingly shot portion of the episode for
It's not
for good
definitive.
reason, I'd say.
It's not definitive.
I mean, again, I'm not saying
Yeah,
that absolutely know that he's alive, but at the same time, you watch that shot. I don't think the show would want to mask ambiguity over that character if they're really going to do that.
I realized it's not definitive, but I thought it was kind of bold for them to do that. And I thought, wow, what a great, what an awesome decision to kill one of the quote unquote unkillable characters. If they do leave him dead, I mean, the thing with Negan would be just as impactful with Daryl.
Daryl's another good one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we were saying Morgan before, but Daryl's another good choice. Yeah.
I mean, the same sequence with Negan and Lucille, whatever, would be just as impactful with him. So
maybe more so actually.
Oh, easily. Yes.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thut it was a bold decision. I was kind of like, kudos to them, for doing that, for having the cojones to do such a thing, to one of the main five or whatever. And then I started reading online, well, he's not really dead. He's and it kind of took away some of the coolness of that for me. So I hope they stick with the decision that he's dead.
I'm on the Stuff and Things Facebook page right now. There's a bunch of memes up there with Negan saying, "If Glenn dies, I'll fucking riot."
Careful poking around there. There are spoilers there, like big time spoilers. So
I'm just reading. Yeah,
I'm just warning you.
But
You're the right place to see them.
which is more impactful, Glenn's death in the show or Glenn's death in the comic? Obviously, the one in the comic.
Yeah, that's what I said.
It was definitely more emotionally impactful and was led up to for such a long time with everything else that happened in that storyline. That this kind of showed by having Glenn die in this episode, I think it kind of just showed the random brutality of their situation. Like everyone is free game, even these people you thought were untouchable, because they were part of the original cast. So I thought it was a bold decision, and if somehow Glenn's still alive, it just seems like they're kind of cheating their way out of that. So, but again, my opinion.
You said unkillable characters, and there was the guy. Who was the guy who used to run Lost? He was on Talking Dead.
Damon
saying,
Lindelof.
What was that?
Damon Lindelof.
Yeah, that's exactly. And he was talking about, okay, well, if this one's unkillable, if Rick's unkillable, Carol's unkillable, Daryl's unkillable, Glenn's, before long the whole cast is unkillable. Then what do? You you're painted into a corner as a writer, as a producer. So the show has to remain nimble and off some people, I guess.
Yeah, but whose opinion are we going to take? Damon Lindelof from Lost, or Yvette Nicole Brown?
And Prometheus, don't forget that.
Or Yvette Nicole Brown, who everyone loves because she's amazing.
She's
Nicole Brown is
Okay,
really
I'm glad that settles.
Yeah. And she wants Rick and Michonne to get together so bad. She keeps talking about it. I'm shipping it.
All right, gentlemen, have we exhausted the topics of whether or not Glenn is alive or dead, or comic spoilers and all that kind
I
of
don't think
stuff?
last listeners talking about it so much.
Alrighty. I think that's going to cover us for this week then, and we will come back and talk to you all next week about Here's Not Here. So have a good week, everybody.
Thank you, good night. At the end of the day, you've taken me somewhere. Thank you, good night. All the love that you gave has taken.
I am recording now.
Testing, waveforms.
Recording?
One.
Audio? Oh, I'm sorry. You said one.
Yes,
I'm
one,
going to test this. Oh, 2,
We're off.
3,
4,
5,
6.
Okay, does as dumb as it sounds, it's actually worked really well for lining
Really?
everything
Okay.
up. So I
It's
kind of
only,
like it.
it's only my second time doing it, so I
Yeah,
didn't
no
know.
worries. No worries.
I'm recording the call also as a whole as well. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Actually,
Smart.
as much of a problem as we thought it was going to be last week, it worked out fairly well. I don't know if you listened to the
I listened to
episode.
half. I didn't get to the part where I wasn't on.
So
yet, but-
basically, I left
That
in
was
the
fun.
part where you dropped out and we didn't realize it, and then I edited in, producer's notes basically saying, hey, so here's what happened. And then there was like 3 or 4 points, I think, after that where you said something. Like a lot of the stuff you said, I could cut out and it still flowed more or less okay. You're just how, if we're all talking about the same subject, unless somebody specifically replying to somebody what you said, I can cut. There was like 3 or 4 points where somebody specifically replied to you, so I basically did another producer's note saying, Aaron said something along the lines of this. And then, and I made it clear that, this was my best memory of what you said and not what you actually said, so I wasn't quoting you or anything. But
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it really smooth, though. I mean, it was very seamless.
Okay.
It was very clean edit. I didn't notice anything.
I even left in the one part, Aaron. You made some joke, and I didn't understand it. And you repeated it. And I didn't understand. Like, I couldn't like fully make out the words, but I left it in there, and then had a producer's note of. So now, audience, you don't get to know what he said either. You get to be in the same boat as me.
Yeah, you made a joke about the East Coast or something.
And then I was like, well, I'll listen
Yeah.
back when I edit, and I'll get the joke then, I'm sure. And then, well, no, it wasn't there.
Now I almost wish I had. Basically, when I do this podcast, if I hadn't listened to the whole thing at this point, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna get. I don't have time. So I just deleted it. So now I gotta re-download it.
Jim's calling me. Jim, how you doing, sir?
Jimbo.
here.
Hey.
We're doing well. Are you ready for us to record? All right, 3, 2, 1, record. And
Okay.
just a call and response. 1,
2,
3.
4.
4.
5,
1 hardcore.
6.
Okay, that's good. I'll say to the guys in the beginning, like as dumb as it sounds, it actually just worked really well for lining up the files. So,
Whatever works, man.
sorry, I was trying to do that without derailing the conversation.
I'm
I
sorry.
have clearly
Sorry, I
failed.
derailed. I was totally distracted.
Sorry.
Look, keys. Oh, shiny.
And there's no mention of a cheesemaker anywhere in that description.
Okay, edit point. What if Jesus is the cheesemaker? Do we know what Jesus was before the apocalypse?
Jesus. Oh,
I didn't say
makes
Jesus.
sense now.
I didn't say that. I said no mention of the cheesemaker.
I know.
He's asking what if
Why
Jesus
did
is
you
the
say
cheesemaker.
What
Oh,
if
I see
Jesus
what
is
you're
the
saying.
cheesemaker?
As long as Jesus walks, that's all I'm concerned with.
I totally bought an album last night called The Second Coming of Jesus, by the way, and I'm not even joking.
Like Jesus.
Yes, it is.
Jesus.
It is the sequel to the Five Iron Frenzy joke album, Jesus of Nazareth.
Okay.
Sure.
Real album that I really spent real money on last night. Just absolutely
Once
serious.
you gotta go back in.
Believe me.
Edit back in now. It's only 10:30, so we're making good time. Well, it's only 7:30, I should say, for you West Coaster.
I do want to get off before 8.
I don't need to know anything about your sexual life, but go ahead. Do-do-do-do-do.
I saw Michael Rooker this weekend. He was over at that Comic-Con I was at.
Oh, really
in
cool.
Jersey. It's called Chiller. It's up in Parsippany, New Jersey.
heard
It
of
was up there. Sophia was there too. There's only 2 Walking Dead people. She got a little
2
older.
dead ones.
That's how it works, yeah.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of actors there. I can't remember all of them. Ralph Macchio was there. And,
Was he also older than the last time you saw him?
He's my favorite Walking Dead actor.
Machio!
Sweep the walker.
The Crane.
We're gonna put him in a body bag, and then they're gonna get out of that body bag because they're walkers.
They had a whole Lost in Space room. They had a lot of actors there. It was actually pretty cool.
I shot the walker. I shot the walker. I shot the walker. That's my cousin Vinny. Let's keep going.
How many people from? I'm assuming when you say Lost in Space, you're not talking about the Matt LeBlanc masterpiece. You're talking about the original show.
The original, Billy Mundy, and the other 2 or 3 are still alive.
William Hurt and Gary Oldman get back together for constantly for the Boston Dead reunion. Heather Graham's there. Matt LeBlanc.
It's like Galaxy Quest, right?
Yeah. Who's still alive from the original show? Like, I imagine
It
most of
was-
the younger actors, but
I wasn't a big Lost in Space fan. It was Billy Mummy. It was Cartwright, I think I want to say her name was, and somebody else. It was 2 ladies and him.
is the robot still alive?
The robot was there. The doctor died, and they had that rover thing outside that where they used to go around and rover around the planet. That was there too.
Who played the daughter in the remake movie?
Lacey Chabert.
I remember thinking Grand Theft Auto was like 12. But I remember thinking she was super hot in that movie.
That's when she was, an it girl when she was on Party of 5 or whatever. And
Yeah, Adam West was there too. Burt Ward.